Well, hello. And today we have a very special guest, Amy Choi-Won, PhD, mom of five. And yes, you heard that correct, mom of five, and founder of My Parenting Guru. So excited to have you today, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today, Anya.
Well, I can't wait to jump in and really hear some of your advice. Now, as a mother of five, your children range from elementary school to college. So you've seen the full journey of parenting. And I wanted to ask you, what have been some of your key takeaways? What could be some of the key advice you could give other parents when it comes to parenting and raising your children?
Um, yes, so I have five children. I'm just going to tell you their age differences. My
Great.
youngest is 8, and then I have an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, and a 19-year-old who is in college. He's actually in community college, so he's still under our roof, but he's getting ready to transfer to a 4-year. So after summer, we'll see where he ends up at. So I basically have a full range of children in elementary school through college. It's been a very interesting and fun journey, challenging at times. When I first had my fifth child, seriously, I was like, what am I doing? You know, this is crazy. But it's like once you accept that they're yours and yours to love, then you just try to figure things out. So I guess one of the first thing that I would mention is I chose not to connect my identity to my children's success. Because sometimes I see parents like, oh, my child goes to this Ivy League school and they take that as their identity. And that puts so much pressure on me to make sure that they get to that school because that's tied to my identity. So when I decided that, and that came along the way, because when I first had my child, I had this picture of my child who's good at everything, who's gonna go and get into Harvard or Stanford and do all this. But what I found out is I need to look at and learn who my child is, and just kind of getting to know them. It's almost like getting to know a new friend. You meet this person and you find out what they like, what they don't like, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and try to foster that as a parent has become my goal, rather than trying to mold them into this child that I want them to be. Because I know even myself, if I put myself in this mold, like I want to be certain way, I want to be certain weight, I want to look certain way, that puts a lot of added pressure to myself. So I guess first thing is disconnect your identity to the success of your child. This
Very difficult to
yes,
do.
this very finite success. I mean, like what college they get into, because I'm looking at my child lifespan from that's like they're gonna live up to 80 or 90 years old, and that first 20 years of their life, I feel like is so short to identify who they are. So my goal is to make sure that they are happy and successful in a different sense in their life, rather than what college they get into. So that was actually hard. It's not like something I just came up with. That's something that I maybe came up with just to try to survive. Because like, if I put myself into that situation where I have to get 5 kids into Ivy League, I don't know, I would probably have ulcer and all stressed out. So maybe it's my survival. But anyway, one of the most important decision that I made as a parent is that I am going to separate myself from their so-called academic success. And then second thing is, I love my children, but I also put myself, a priority about myself and take care of myself. At first, I felt guilty about taking time away to, let's say, exercise or time away for myself, but I realized that that's a good example for my children, that when they grow up, that they will learn to take care of themselves. That, I don't want them to lose themselves as they're trying to help other people, like to a point where they're too exhausted and get burned out. So, second thing is that I try to take care of myself, and my rationale is that it allows my children to take care of someone that they love. Because my philosophy is that if you never practice taking care of somebody, like how do you know? It's just one of the lessons that I have to teach my children as well. So I don't feel as bad about asking my children to take care of mommy because they love me and they need to take care of me as well.
That's wonderful.
And the third thing is I recognize that there are different times and phases to parenting. Of course, when they're first born, and I nursed all my 5 children. So physically and emotionally, spiritually, everything, like you are in that phase. You're going to be changing diapers, you're going to be nursing, you're going to be sleep deprived. I just accepted the fact that there are going to be times where it'll be harder for me to take care of myself, and it'll be all giving to my child. But there will be a point where I can let go a little bit and then allow them to do things on their own. So just kind of thinking that it's not like, because when you're nursing and when you're so busy, it just feels like it'll never end. But if you kind of have that perspective that this is temporary and it's a phase and it will change in a year or two, somehow it made things a little bit more manageable. And so those are 3 things. Like first thing is that separating my identity from the academic success of my children. Second thing is it's okay for me to take care of myself. And that, came a little bit later when my children were a little bigger. Third thing is to accept the fact that there are phases in parenting, and you provide the necessary love and time and effort that your child needs at that point of their lives. So those are some of the things that I've learned
Yes.
in the last 20 years.
Well, in 20 years, yes. Well, and you mentioned, one of the first things was for you to really separate your identity from your child's academic success. Nonetheless, that's a very specific thing to think about. A lot of people maybe don't even, think about necessarily academic success when they start their parenting journey. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and why, even this was a key issue you had to come to grips with, particularly academic success, because you come from a very academic background yourself.
Definitely. So I do have a PhD in chemistry from University of California, San Diego. And my husband is a physician, and he also has a master's in public health and an executive MBA. So our extended families have more advanced degrees and going into college and, getting degrees and studying. It's just been part of our family culture. And, I'm an Asian American, and as in our culture, the academic success is very important. So I was raised by a single mother. And for me, at that point when I was in school, doing well in school was the only way for me to, in my mind, succeed and get out of what I saw from my mom. She was not very well educated when she came to the States. She really, really had to work hard to raise my sister and me. And I felt that it was my responsibility to study hard so I can get a job, provide more stable life for my mom and my family. So that was the only option that was offered to me. And fortunately, I was a hard worker, and there were a lot of people who supported me. So I was able to get this degree and, reach the dream of getting a PhD in chemistry. And I had this vision, I'm going to work and I'm going to have 2 kids and, marry somebody.
And you started as a professor as well. You started teaching your career.
Yes, the reason why
in the university system.
Yes, the reason why I wanted to get a PhD is because I love teaching and I loved college students, and that's what I wanted to do. So I started teaching for a few years after I had my children. But by the time I had my 3rd child, it got a little bit too much trying to balance everything. So I actually did quit teaching. And I think I brought that energy back into my family and try to see, if I can help my children achieve that academic success. And I felt like, I know how to get an A in that class. Listen, mommy, this is how you do it, right? So that's how I did. But what I realized is that each person is born with different gifts and abilities. And academic success is one of the gifts that can be given to you if you work hard. I realized because my 5 children are all different and they have different talents and different strengths and weaknesses. And one quote, actually, I wrote it down so I don't forget. They said that the Albert Einstein gets a credit, but they don't think it's really accurate when I did some Google search. And the quote is, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So that quote really spoke to me when I started working with my children. I realized that I can work really hard and for a long time with, let's say, one of my child who was not performing as well academically and get the result, like get that A. But I realized that they can do it, but they had to sacrifice so much in order to do that. Like I'm not allowing them time and a chance to explore something that they're naturally good at, for the price of getting that A. So at some point I was like, am I doing, is this what's good for my child? So I kind of had to step back a little bit because it was affecting my relationship with my children as well. Because as a tutor, as a teacher, you can put some pressure on them and allowing them to work. But as a mom, it's like a little bit different relationship. So I had to step back and then really really think about it and see what I define as academic success. Is that important? Is that what's right for my child? So I changed a little bit throughout as I spend more time with my children. So, if you had spoken to me about 10 years ago, I might have been like, you can get there, you just need to work hard. You need to be more involved with your children and provide them with more tutoring resources and this and that. And that is true. I mean, if that academic success is so important, that can be done, I believe. But I have 5 and I'm only one person. So I had to figure out the system that works for me as well, along with my children, because I can't spend 5-6 hours a day just alone with one of my children when I have other people that I also need to love. So that's when I kind of stepped back about the focus on academic success. And I do also recognize that some of my children, the academics come much easier and they may need more challenge. And that's when I need to provide the more resources for them. So basically what my fundamental thing that I came up with is that my children need to learn how to read, how to write, so that they know how to communicate. They do need some math so that they can survive and understand the complexity in this world. But more importantly, I need to teach them how to learn. So the skills, how to learn. Absolutely. Because when I was in high school, I wasn't aware of this whole internet, for example. Like that was not in my radar. And all the jobs and all the industry that born out of internet, I had no clue. And so that was not part of what my dream might be. When I'm older, I want to do something and internet was not part of it, for example. So right now, my children are what they're learning in school. There might be something else that becomes so important when they're older that they have to learn. And I think the more important skill is for me to teach them how to learn, So those 3 fundamental, reading, writing, and math is important, but also another skill is how to learn. And the fact that they can learn from not only from books, but from talking to people, how to remember certain things, using different resources, also allow them to learn what works for them. Some of them learn better by doing things. Some of them learn by reading. So allowing my children to figure that out for themselves became more important. So I guess maybe the process became more important than the grade itself, at least at this point.
It seems you're describing a certain shift happened to you. This is over the course of 20 years of parenting and having the 5 kids. And it seems that shift happened roughly about 10 years ago. I'm wondering how did you and how do you parent differently today, your younger children, than you did your older children? And you've given us some hints, but if you could elaborate a little bit more.
Definitely. I would say I'm more patient parent with my younger children. I step back a little bit and then allow them to show me who they are. And I think my fourth and fifth children, they benefit a lot from it. I definitely don't yell at them as much. My poor first and second one had gone through me yelling like, why can't you do this? Just work harder. I always apologize to them because they're a bit of a rough draft for me. I was trying to figure out this parenting thing because, there's no set manual. I was not born as a parent. I always tell them that mommy's learning to be a parent. This is my first time, so please forgive me if I make mistakes. Let me know if I'm doing something wrong. So I get some feedback from my kids as well. So I would say my fourth and fifth child, I am definitely more patient, and I observe more. I, try to see what they're doing, hear from them. I say, what was it easier for you? Why do you think that was easier for you? Oh, do you enjoy that? Or why do you enjoy that? You don't like that? Why is that? Can we fix that? Like if they did poorly on the test, I'll be like, oh, let's look at it and see what's causing this. But I also kind of try to teach them, when you redo this problem, and if you can do this on your own, that's when you'll understand. So that next time you see it, you will get it right. So definitely a lot more patient with them. And then also, even if their report card isn't as good at this point, I'm like, oh, okay. That means they didn't know this, so we need to work on it, rather than getting all mad. Like, oh my God, they did not get this grade. Because I used to do that with my older kids. So I just want you to remember, it's not like I was born like this. I've gone through a lot to get to this point and try to keep peace in myself. So I think of it as long run, also to even, from like first grade to the 12th grade, that there's also multiple chance for them to get better. If the fifth grade year wasn't so good, then we learned something from it. So we'll try to improve a little bit more in sixth grade. So I definitely am a lot more patient. And I think because of that, I actually do enjoy it more. Like we laugh about it. I'm like, oh, that's what you got. All right, let's see what we can do. Yeah, and
that's the ultimate tip, right? How to enjoy parenting more, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you also, because you have 5 kids, and from what I've heard, they're all quite different, right? They have different talents, they have different interests. And I wanted to see, how do you develop and how you even recognize those different interests and talents and predispositions in your kids? Because I think sometimes when you have just one child, or maybe just 2 children, it's as a parent, then you're more likely to kind of impose that that self on your children. But when you really see, such a range, right, of interests and talents, perhaps it's helpful to see that.
Yeah, maybe it's because I have 5 children. I realized that even though they came out of me and my husband, sometimes they're just very different from us. And at first that was hard to accept. It's like, oh, you're my child, but why don't you get this? It's like, you got the brain from us. But I realized that they're like different side of the brain. I'm left brain, my left brain is more dominant, but their right brain might be more dominant. It's like, wow, So I think one of the benefit of me being a scientist is that I am naturally curious. Like, I want to know more. I want to know why. I want to improve if I can. So that actually helped me, because when I decided that I'm going to separate my identity with their academic success, that allowed me to sit back and just kind of observe them. Like, see what they do, what they're naturally good at, what they're naturally drawn to, but at the same time, what they want to be. So, for example, I have one child who wants to go to med school, but I do know that it takes her longer to get the mathematic concepts or scientific concepts, or even memorize facts. It does take her longer. So I do know that she can, go to med school if that's what she really, really wants. But I also need to let her know, because I've observed that it will come at a bigger cost than maybe some other children that I have, because she would have to spend probably twice as much time studying for this subject in order to really master that. So, from that observation, and then I also know, for example, she has different strengths. So, I also like kind of tell her, oh, you're very good at this too. And there are other options. So I think observation is very important. Like, as I mentioned, like becoming friends with them. You want to get to know who that person is, that person as he or she is, rather than putting my lens as a parent, having preconceived notion that my child should be this way, kind of accepting, oh, you're not good at that. Or, wow, you're really, really good at that. Like more than I thought, you would be, So just kind of letting go of my prejudice was very important, and just kind of accepting them for who they are. So I would say just spending time, observation, and also taking them to different places, and allowing them to be in different situations. And one thing I appreciate about it is just even car rides. I drive them to their activities a lot, and that's when I get to have one-on-one time and just talking to them. Sometimes I just turn off the radio on purpose so that I can talk to them and just hear about their friends and just what they're thinking, and just spending time and becoming a listener. I think is very important, because your children have a lot of stories to tell you. They want you to know who they are.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I follow your My Parenting Guru, and just trying to keep up with all the activities. All of your kids are doing some enrichment activities. When do you honestly find the time? I think some parents may feel even overwhelmed. They have one or two children, to say that, okay, how will I find the time and the ability to develop my child's, strengths or talents, to discover them and then encourage them? So really, how do you manage with 5 kids to enable each one of them to really grow in their area of interest?
So I would say that I have been blessed that when they were younger, I did have a nanny that helped me. So, because with somebody, that I'm nursing, I still had to take somebody to soccer practice. It's very hard. So I did have extra help. I would say until they're about 8, 9, 10-ish, I try to have them be exposed to different activities. Just trying to figure out.
Until they're about 8 or 9, 10, right?
Just kind of trying to figure out what they like, what they're good at. Basically kind of trying to figure out like who they are. But I think at some point, like 10, 9-ish, you kind of have to narrow the numbers. I would say maybe just to 1 or 2 big activities that they pursue. So just to let you know, what my children did and are doing. My son is into cybersecurity, and he's always been drawn to more academic things. So he did more academic.
This is your oldest?
Yes, this is my oldest. So just to let you know, I have one son who's 19, and I have 4 girls after that. Okay. So my son was more into academics, and that's what he spent his time. We just encouraged that. I supported him by volunteering my time in the booster club for these cybersecurity teams and stuff, so that they have the fun to go and compete at different places. So those are some of the support that I provided for him. But that, took a while. He was pretty busy when he was younger, because we were just trying to figure out what he liked. He did a lot of different sports, different activities, arts. I mean, you name it, he's tried it. And we've been very fortunate that, he was allowed to do and explore his interest when he was younger. With my 2 girls after Brendan, my son, they started playing soccer at an earlier age, and they decided that that's something they really liked. And we basically kind of stuck with it. They did some, basketball, volleyball here and there. So just when they're younger, but by the time they were in about 3rd grade, we joined the club soccer team, and that basically consumed all our time and energy for them. So they do soccer as their big thing. And I am part of a national charity organization, which is a volunteer organization for moms and daughters. So that might be some of their other big activities. And then all the other things that they do it at school. So it's a school-based activities. With my 4th child, she also tried different things when she was younger. And from when she was really little, even 1-year-old, we knew that she loved dancing. So dancing was part of her life throughout. And at some point, that's what she wanted to do. So she, takes a lot of ballet lessons now, and we'll see what takes her. Whether, I don't know if she's going to be a professional ballerina or not. We're going to just support her and see. And I just think that that discipline that she gets and the appreciation of art will be beneficial for her with whatever she decides to do later on. So there's my 8-year-old who's trying different things. So currently she's doing piano, soccer. She does Kumon because, when you're younger, it's important that they master that multiplication table and other things.
Yes. Yes.
And because I am busy, because she doesn't do as many as her older siblings did. And she's gonna actually soccer season just ended, so she's gonna give volleyball a try. So we're gonna do that for a few months. So when they're younger, it's more like seasonal things. They would do one activity for 2-3 months, and it's like something like piano that can go on for a while. But sports wise, I just kind of expose them to different sports. But with my youngest, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I learned from having them be involved in so many activities. It's like, we'll just give it a try and see what she likes. And so far she likes doing some sports and she's okay. But we'll see what we're going to let her kind of explore for another year or so and then see, what she wants to pursue more in depth. And by then I think that could be, and it may not be sports. It could be, like speech and debate or some like science things or math competition or something, but we just keep an eye on it. And I would say during summer is when I have them to, like when they were younger, did a lot of activities. They would go to like science camp or they'll go to art camp for a week so that they get exposed to different things for a shorter duration. So that's when I kind of try to figure out, what their interests are.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to follow up. As a PhD in chemistry, your husband is also a physician and a scientist. To what extent have you emphasized, STEM fields, sciences, math, when it comes to your children? To what extent this has been important for you?
Yes, in my everyday conversation, if a topic comes up, I would say I would explain a little bit more in detail than what other moms may do, I guess. And then I also look at their interest. If they love, let's say my son was in love with dinosaurs, then, we'll learn together more. I buy more books on them. If I find like a documentary that's interesting, if I hear about museum that offers something more, I definitely try to take them and just be exposed. So if I see that thirst in my child, then I try to, find something that they can use so that they can learn more. So it's kind of child-led. So some of my children are really interested in more scientific STEM things, then I try to provide more opportunity to them. Everybody had an opportunity to attend science camp at some point in their life, though, during summer.
So they all did science camp.
Yeah. Everybody had something so that they get exposed, because I think even if you don't major in science, because we are living in this very complicated world, it helps to have some understanding and appreciation for it. So it's just kind of like we always talk about it. I bring up some podcast, or if they have questions, we discuss about it. So I would say I'm not sure if I necessarily bring in a STEM here's like a lab kit that we're gonna work on. I don't do that as much. I do bring some kits if my child is interested in it. But I would say maybe like cooking, I'll be like, this heat, you apply this heat and you're going to see that it becomes different thing, it's called chemical reaction or something like that. Or I'll bring certain word, so just kind of like it's part of life. And I feel like when they're older, they're going to be like, what do you mean you don't know what this is? This was just like a common vocabulary in my house, Yeah.
So they have built-in science lessons, I suppose, in their day-to-day life with you, right?
Yeah, I hope so. And that's how science is. Actually, science, it's just life, and people are just trying to ask questions and trying to figure out, why and how, and so. At least I don't want them to be scared of science. Like I don't want them to say, "Oh, that sucks," because I don't understand that. Just an appreciation.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of, in a way, you could say maybe even fear of science or misunderstanding. And it just seems like for families that are less exposed to like such a complex, way out there subject. So in your case, you really bring it down to the, day-to-day life. So it is something your children are exposed to it seems like a very casual way daily.
Definitely, definitely. It's not something different. It's just a part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And just your mom just studied chemistry. That was it. Your mom is a scientist, and my kids can just say, "Oh, scientists." They'll never grow up thinking, "Oh, women cannot do science. Women cannot do math. They can't be scientists." I mean, they know that their mom is, so it will become natural for them if they decide to pursue that field.
I know you're also a big fan of Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, where she describes the benefits of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I'm wondering how, as a parent, you have imparted some of these lessons of the growth mindset into how you parent and how you interact with your children.
Definitely. I wish I read that book earlier. I think I would have become a better parent for my older children had I read that earlier. I think it just allowed me once again to become more patient. I always tell people these days that when I was growing up, I didn't do certain activities because I felt like I wouldn't be good at it. Everything I do, I wanted to work hard and become good at it. So that limited my choices. And in things I did, I think I did okay because I really worked hard and I already picked something that I thought I'll be good at. But when I read Carol Dweck's mindset, it allowed me that, you don't have to be like always good at it, but if you try a little bit, you'll be better than where you were in the beginning. And also just working with my kids also too, some of them, let's say, were better at math and science than others. In the beginning, I just kind of went, oh, okay, I guess that child will never do math and science. Just not very good at it. Like maybe they're just born like that and I won't have high expectation from them. But after I read that book, I felt like, okay, we can still work with them. And, just allow them to be better than where they are, So, I don't know, somehow made me more peaceful, I guess, not as anxious, thinking that having that perspective change. My child is still the same as she and he was before I read the book. But now that I've read the book, I feel like, oh, they have more potential. We have more time. Maybe they didn't do well this time, but, let's see if we can improve something and they can do more. Or they can try this, even though they might be good at it. It's okay. They don't have to be good at it. They'll be better than they were had they not tried. So it made me just, I think, more nurturing. And I think it puts less stress on my children. My house is still stressful. Don't think it's like a zen. Everybody's like, yes, kumbaya and happy. No. But
certainly with 5 kids and with your dedication.
Yeah, but I think it just put less anxiety in my kids. They don't feel like, and also it opens up their self-perception as well too. My child maybe before felt like, oh, my mom thinks that I'm never going to be good at math. I'm just not good at math. But now I think I hear my children saying, oh, maybe I may not be good at it naturally, but I can still get better. Like I can reach for that 88% versus where they were at 70%. Like if I work hard, I may not get to an A maybe, but I can still get that B plus, and they value the fact that they work so hard to get that B plus instead of getting mad that they didn't get that A minus. So I'm hoping that I'm saving some money on mental therapy, health therapy bills in the future by raising them the way they are at this point. But I would say mindset just changed my perspective as a person and allowing my children more grace and a little bit more flexible and having them not be afraid to try something they think they may not be good at, but they want to try anyway, because you never know. They might surprise themselves. So does that kind of answer your question?
Absolutely. And, when you mentioned also that reduced your children's anxiety and your own anxiety, and that's specifically, I think, really the differences between that growth mindset and fixed mindset, where in a fixed mindset you are, it's that stressful set that you're either there or you're not. You're either good or you're not. You're either talented this or you're not. There's no room for that potential, as you say, and that growth, which again, we're talking about young children. Of course, they have their whole lifetime ahead. And when you said one of the first, lessons you've learned as a parent is that you hope for them to be learners, to love learning. And if you kind of broaden your horizon to the future, they have their whole lifetime as well to be learners and to grow and to improve.
Yes, I think actually, when I was in grad school, my lab mate actually helped me change my perspective. So I went to my undergrad and I went to grad school right away. Just like I was set, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to go and stay in school and get this thing done. When I got to grad school, I turned 22 and I met my lab mate who was 27 and he was a surfer. And what he told me is that he never took chemistry in high school. His interest was more in going surfing all the time. He took least amount of classes to graduate. And then he started working at Costco after he finished high school. And, just to see what happens, he started taking some classes at community college. And then he decided, he took general chemistry and he really liked it. And he was good at it. So he kept taking the courses while he was working and then later transferred to a 4-year university, did really well, and then got into research. And after he finished school, he took a year off and just went to UCLA and started talking to professors and then found a research assistant job and worked there for about a half year. So when he came in with a lot more experience in lab setting than I did because he worked as a research assistant for half a year. And then he had benefit from Costco because he worked there. So he had some retirement benefit. And then
he had life experience.
Yeah, life experience. And then he knew what he wanted to study. Like I was just clueless. I'm like, I just want to get a PhD in chemistry. That was the only thing. But within chemistry, there's organic chemistry, biochemistry, organic chemistry, physical chemistry. There's just so much. But because he spent that half a year as a research assistant and just kind of saw what was going on, he knew what he wanted to do. So when he finished, he ended up doing a postdoc for a Nobel laureate. And he's doing really well now. So when I looked at them, I'm like, well, our age gap is 5 years. But in the long run, it made a very small difference what he did in high school. At the end, we had the same degree and he went on to do something great. So that actually helped me relax. I'm like, this is not the only way to reach your dream. There are a lot of different side ways that you can go through in order to get the degree that you want, even if, what you want is like a MD or, a JD or, whatever. So it just takes a few more years. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great lesson that even if you are pursuing a very academic path, as in the case you described, I mean, this is a very academic path, that your focus can come even later. I think we often make the assumption, well, if you're going to pursue the very academic path, it has to start very, very early on. And there's kind of no deviation off that road.
Definitely. And, with college admissions, now that I've been tracking it, the number of applicants has gone up so much and the acceptance rate is so small. So I've seen many students who have done everything right. Like they have the perfect GPA, almost perfect test scores, all this amazing extracurricular activities, and then don't get into the schools they want because the choice is not up to them. Like this random person in some admissions office gets thousands of applications and they have this great pool and they're just going to pick whoever they want to because they only have a small number of seats that's available for them. So I really wanted to tell, my friends' kids that it's not the end of the world. What's more important is who you are. Because maybe you don't get into school right now of your choice, right now. But if you are this excellent student and you can learn, you're going to have an amazing GPA at the school you're at. Or if you choose to transfer, you can probably transfer because you're going to have these amazing GPA first 2 years. Mm-hmm. So you'll be fine. You'll be able to do whatever you want to do with your life because you had this preparation. And it's more important of who you are, rather than what college you get into when you're 18 years old.
No, absolutely. I think that's so key. And who you are, and if you're really that learner again. So I wanted to, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, Amy, what parting advice do you have for parents of younger kids still, parents of kids in elementary school and middle school, and how to support your child's different interests and different talents?
Okay, I would say first is enjoy your time. Hug them more, and just have them just be your friend, that they want to come and talk to you after school, that you don't take that relationship for granted, that they still turn to you when they're in need. So, for example, my freshman year just had a nightmare. She said that, Mom, I had a nightmare yesterday. And I was like, what happened? She goes, I killed somebody in my dream. But you said it's okay because you know someone important and you can help me get out of it. So, I mean, not that becomes real. Just the fact that like I was the first person she turned to in her dire need,
Yes.
So just build that relationship. I think that's more important than what grades they have, that you have that relationship with your child and you enjoy their childhood. But at the same time, see if there are any gaps. Once again, it's important that they do know how to read, write, and then also do some math. So I would say if you need to provide some support to make sure that they have good skills, because that's going to help them become a better learner. If they have those fundamental skills, I would say I'll focus on the fundamental skills. That doesn't mean that they have to get A's on all of them, but just that they know how to do that. And then also become friends with them and just observe and learn together too. Also, I mean, one of my favorite activities is like, they said, Mommy, blah, blah, do you know anything about this? And I would say, oh, I don't know. Let's Google it together. So just kind of learn with them. Because, for example, when my son was so into dinosaurs, I learned so much about dinosaurs. So, kind of learn with them and talk to them. And by learning with them, you teach them how to learn and how to become a learner. And it's okay for people to learn new things when they're older. So that's kind of about it. Just breathe. Because also, I realized I wasn't breathing much. I was so tense when my kids are younger. So just sit down and have that deep breath and breathe and know that you're alive and just check in and make sure that, you're doing okay. And then look around and hug your child and tell them that you love them. And then see, what they want to tell you and have your ears open. And then see if there are things that they need at that time. Because they will ask, I want to do this. At least give it a try. But at the same time, letting them know, this is another quote that I saw. It's like, I support my children's passion, but if I pay the tuition for 6 weeks, that's going to be their passion. So kind of like, if you come in and there's that duration, then let's see through, And so because what they first encounter, they might not like, but if they do it a little bit longer, they might actually enjoy it. But you still need to be tuned. Like, is this something they really, really hate? So you kind of have to be very flexible and then kind of listen to your children. So I don't know if
so commitment
too, yes. And also just being open to what your child is telling you. I would say, become your child's friend. Good friend doesn't put too much pressure on your friend to become a certain person. You want to get to know your friend and you want to provide the support that your friend needs. And I would say I would do that to my children. But I also want to remind people that are listening to you, that doesn't mean that you just become their friend and go along with everything with them.
Literally,
foremost,
right.
We are their parents. So, we set boundaries and guidelines so that they can grow healthy and in safe environment first, and then get to know them and become friend in a sense that you love them, you support them, and provide them the things that they need so that they can flourish.
Well, thank you so much. And that's Amy Choi-Won, PhD in chemistry, mom of 5, founder of My Parenting Guru, offering us some actually low stress parenting tips, which you might not have expected.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I hope, you found it helpful. So if you have any questions,
Absolutely.
find me at My Parenting Guru.
Wonderful. And we hope to see you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Have a lovely
You
day.
too.
Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos.